What's up guys, how you doing? Welcome to another video. So today we're talking about the Canon R7, and no, this is not a Canon R7, this is a 7D Mark II. But there are a lot of rumours circulating now about the upcoming release of the Canon R7, and it sounds really exciting. I wanted to talk to you today about my thoughts on it, share with you some of the rumoured specs that are out there right now and sound fairly likely that they will be true, and also how it compares with the Canon R6, because that's actually going to be a really key point and something which I certainly am interested in. Before I get into the content of that, I'm going to ask you guys to do two things for me. Number one, hit the like button on the video because it helps me out loads and loads on my channel. Number two, think about subscribing if you haven't already. Loads of other videos to come which I think you might enjoy. Hopefully some Canon R7 videos in the not so distant future. If they do actually release it and we manage to get hold of one, I will share all that with you right here on the channel. So for you guys who aren't familiar, the Canon R7 is rumoured to be Canon's upcoming release of their aps-c crop sensor camera, the first crop sensor mirrorless camera in their R range. And a more direct comparison is it is kind of supposed to be the mirrorless replacement of the Canon 7D Mark II. For a long time, the Canon 7D Mark II was Canon's kind of flagship crop sensor camera for sports, action, wildlife photographers, and it was announced a year or so ago now that there was not going to be a Canon 7D Mark III. Instead, there was a Canon 90D released, which was fairly comparable with the 7D Mark II, but wasn't really a step up. It certainly wasn't a 7D Mark III. But rumour has it, in the second half of 2021, we might well be getting a 7D Mark III or a Canon R7, the mirrorless version. Now, there's a lot of rumours circulating now online about what the specs of that camera will include. The first big thing, of course, is that it is going to be an aps-c crop sensor camera. Now, that basically means that it is a cropped version of a sensor. So, for example, something like my 1DX is a full frame camera, and the 7D Mark II has a 1.6 crop factor, which kind of means you take a full frame sensor and then it is cropped to 1.6, but obviously it kind of almost has like a zoom effect. Full frame sensor cropped into 1.6 kind of almost gives you that illusion of a zoomed in photo. But in reality, it's a cropped sensor. Cropped sensor versus full frame sensor, that's a whole separate video. I'm not going to talk about that right now. But that is what the Canon R7 is going to be. But if you kind of imagine what that means, that would mean something like the Canon RF 100-500, which would be a popular lens with wildlife bird photographers, kind of then becomes something like a 160mm to 800mm lens. That is an absolute powerhouse of a lens. Now, rumours started to circulate that there were a couple of prototypes of the Canon R7 out there in the field being tested, and off the back of that we've had some rumours on the specs that it is going to include. It is rumoured to basically look exactly the same as the Canon R6 and hold a lot of the same features. Things like the autofocus system, 12 frames per second mechanical shutter, 20 frames per second mirrorless shutter. It really sounds like it is going to be a capable camera. Now, in terms of the sensor, there's some different rumours out there. There are some rumours that suggest it could be almost the same sensor as the R6, the 20 megapixels I mean. Some also suggesting that it could be something like 45 megapixels. That seems to be a little bit vague. We're not entirely sure on what that is going to include. Lots of the other features, though, sound very similar to the Canon R6. You'll be able to shoot your 1080p video, your 4K video, rumoured to have dual memory card slots, pretty much all the kind of key features that we have in the Canon R6 over there in a crop censored Canon R7. So fast frame rate, great autofocus, it really is starting to sound like it could be a good replacement for the 7D Mark II. It's also rumoured to have in-body stabilisation, very much the same as the Canon R6 and of course Canon R5 do. So that then puts us in a position where we're thinking, well actually, yeah great, it really does sound like a replacement or a mirrorless version of the 7D Mark II, equivalent to a 7D Mark III. But I'm starting to think, how does that then compare with the Canon R6? you have to assume that it probably would be cheaper than the Canon R6. So then you really do start to think, well, you know what? A camera that has the same autofocus capabilities, just as fast as the Canon R6, and you've got that crop factor, well, actually, that could be a really capable camera for sports, action, wildlife shooters. Especially if you consider the fact that with that crop factor, you could be using something like a 300mm lens or even a 70 to 200mm lens, and you'll get a similar reach as you do on your R6 with a 400mm lens. We all know that 300mm lenses are cheaper than 400mm lenses, unless you're looking at different older versions, of course. And if the R7 is cheaper than the R6, well, those two things come together and really get you thinking. One of the key things that doesn't seem to be out there rumours wise right now is the ISO low light capability. That was always one of the bigger problems when we looked at the 7D Mark II compared with something like the 1DX. Whilst I love this camera, great camera, loads of videos on it, it does not have the same low light capabilities as something like the 1DX. Now if we're looking at the R6 and saying it's got the same low light capabilities as like the 1DX Mark II or even Mark III, it will be interesting to see how an R7 compares in low light to the R6. I suspect the low light performance won't be as good as the R6, but if it is good or good enough, that really could be an amazing capable camera. And actually, I've been out here on this channel for the last few weeks talking about how I probably would get a second R6. Well, maybe an R7 paired with an R6 could be a really good option, especially if it maybe gave me the option to use a 300mm lens on that R7 rather than having to have my 400mm lens, and the money that could save me overall really got me thinking here to decide what would be best, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the confirmed specs of that camera. You guys who are wondering about lenses, of course the crop sensor DSLRs have the EFS range of lenses. Now those EFS lenses do work on the Canon R6 if you're using the right adapter. Of course there might be some rumours that Canon could almost create an RFS range of lenses, but that doesn't seem to be rumoured right now that they're going to do that. They might well do, but right now, me certainly doing a bit of Googling and everything, I haven't managed to find anything about that. Overall, I've got to say, it sounds really interesting, and I'm going to be keeping a close eye on that camera and looking forward to it coming out. If I can, when it does, I will get hold of one on this channel and we'll do loads of reviews, loads of videos, and we will talk all about it. In the meantime, guys, what would you like to see in a Canon R7? What would you like to see included, spec-wise, whatever you want? Let me know in the comments. Really interested to hear your thoughts. I think that probably just about rounds us off. So guys, if you did enjoy this video, do me a favour, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.